All right, are we doing good? Should I move or can they? I don't know. I guess they're getting the waste. Hello, virtual people. Hello, in-person audience. Welcome. My name is Destiny. It's really a joy always to welcome people to the store. Is there anybody who's here for the first time? Just curious. Oh my gosh. Yes, welcome. Well, hope that it's the first of many trips to East City Bookshop. Just a few logistical things. Some of you have figured out already, but restrooms are upstairs and past the registers. We have tons of events like this here at the store. We have a couple really fun romance events coming up soon this summer. I think there's a little flyer for it on that table when you came down the stairs. So if you haven't checked it out, go ahead and check it out. And of course, we love when you get books. So both authors will be signing right after. So if you haven't already gotten a copy, we have tons of them upstairs. I think that's it in the way of housekeeping. Oh, our virtual audience, just so you know, if you have questions, go ahead and make sure you put them in there. We have someone right here who's going to make sure that you are taken care of. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Lane Clarke is an author, lawyer, and associate literary agent with Art House Literary. She writes and represents books that make you laugh, cry, and dare to dream. When not eating Cocoa Pebbles for dinner, she can be found rewatching Schitt's Creek, hilarious, making corny jokes, and taking an obnoxious amount of photos of her fur babies. She lives in the DMV with her husband and two sons, the aforementioned fur babies. Please welcome Lane Clarke. Woo. Welcome, welcome. Oakland-born law grad Taj McCoy is committed to writing stories championing Black and multiracial women of color, plus-size protagonists, Black love, Black joy, and characters with strong senses of sisterhood and familial bonds. She is the author of Savvy Sheldon Feels Good as Hell, so much fun, and Zora Books Her Happy Ever After, which is so DC, and she's the editor of Even If the Sky is Falling, which we are here to discuss today. She resides less than a mile outside of the nation's capital. And please join me in welcoming Taj McCoy.
It's funny, I actually did have Cocoa Pebbles for dinner tonight.
Maybe now? Okay, got it. Hello, everyone. Hi. So tonight we're talking about Even If the Sky is Falling, which is a disaster rom-com anthology. This is really a brainchild of mine that formulated. I was talking to one of my agents at the time, and we were just kind of thinking in terms of what disaster could we create that wouldn't be so on the nose that it could happen tomorrow. And so that's how this particular anthology was born. Imagine a few years from now, a series of meteor showers that are colliding with space junk and causing different pieces of it to plummet towards the Earth. Some of it burns in the atmosphere, while other parts of it actually land, and it causes global citizens to obviously be concerned and to want some sort of warning system so that they know when they should run and hide for cover. And so they pressure world leaders to create a siren system that's universal. And it allows people to know if they hear this sound or they have this particular warning, they need to go ahead and bunker underground if possible. And so this anthology covers 6 couples across the US and what they do when they believe, even falsely, that the world might be coming to an end. And so Lane is one of my wonderful contributors. And you have a story in the anthology called Lucky Stars, My Lucky Stars. What is your elevator pitch for that particular story?
I pitched it to you as lesbians.
You did.
But it's about 2 law school rivals who get stuck in their law school library in the restricted area when this alarm goes off. And it's just about queer love and exploring your sexuality. And it was a lot of fun to write. But how did you come up with, this brainchild of yours? Like, I know you talked to your agent about it, but your specific story, how did
Yeah.
you kind of get the juice for that?
So my story is about the NASA team that goes to implement the system and accidentally triggers it to go off, causing everybody to bunker. I just thought, especially if this is a disaster rom-com, what's funnier than, oops, I accidentally caused this major thing to happen, and how do I fix it so I don't lose my job? And so my main character is Hallie, and she is, trying to figure out how to lead her team when she finds out that her ex has been assigned as security detail. So not only does she have the tension of dealing with him, but she's also assigned her commanding officer's nephew, who in the grand scheme of things is the worst person to have on a team because he ruins everything. And so this is no different because they're in Colorado at a secluded station. And so he goes to a brewery because he hears that there's this famous peanut butter stout. And so he sneaks that into the space station, spills it, causes a short in the system, and sets everything in motion. And so the next 12 hours are him scrambling, trying to fix it, and everybody else trying to deal with the aftermath. And so my couple, of course, is Hallie and her ex, Griff, and he's trying to calm her down so she doesn't lose her shit on this poor tech guy. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. There's always that one guy.
Always. When you first heard the premise, what attracted you to the stories and what made you want to participate?
I just really love disaster movies. Like, it's probably weirdly like my comfort genre when
Same.
I'm stressed out.
Yeah.
I'm like, let me watch a movie about the world ending because my problems aren't that bad. And so when you talked to me about this premise, I just thought that it was really cool, and I had never seen a disaster movie that focused on a queer couple. So I was just really excited to contribute that part of the collection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually really, really happy that you did a queer couple. Happy Pride Month, everybody.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm in my pride dress today. But also, this was a big deal for you because this was the first time you were writing for adults, and it was your first love scene.
Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like for you?
Uncomfortable. I don't know. It was kind of freeing. It was just I just wrote very gratuitously. I had never done it before, so I was like, I'm gonna just write. I don't know what I would want to happen.
Yeah.
And I know we had the discussion on whether to add another one. I was like, please don't make me write another one. But also I just thought my characters, it really was kind of like, for at least Jones, her like very first time exploring this part of her.
Yeah.
And I just felt like she'd kind of be too afraid to like really take the reins. So Diana kind of does it for her, which is like the first time that Jones really like relinquishes control like ever in her life.
Yeah.
But it was a journey for sure. I wrote it all at once because I was like, I just got to get it all on the page as fast as possible. But it was a lot of fun, and I read your books as like some inspiration. I think it as crazy as some of your books.
I mean,
the queen of the scene.
Do you see yourself delving into that more though?
I don't know. I've thought about it. I write YA mostly, so it's all like very slow burn, very like, oh my god, you touched the back of my hand. So that's typically where I live. But this was a lot of fun, so maybe.
Fair. Totally fair.
Is there a character from your story that you would want to write a whole book about or expand?
Yes. So I think my story has the most characters out of everybody because it has the whole NASA team plus the chief plus family members. So actually there's two. One of the people is on the NASA team. His name is Jake, and he is this really brooding, very quiet guy. But he's actually just a big softie. He just seems really rough and closed off because he's on a mission and he's focused on his work. I have a plan for Jake. We're currently on sub with that plan right now. I'm doing a series, or I'm proposing a series, fingers crossed it actually sells. But I've proposed a series that I hope sells, and if it does, then Jake would actually have to be paired with a kindergarten teacher who's trying to get a trip to a NASA station for her class. And so he would have to give the tour, and he's not sure how he is around kids because he's very gruff. It would be very grumpy sunshine, which I'm excited about. Yeah. The other would be Hallie's sister, who she calls during the course of the story to complain that her ex is stuck with her, and her sister is here for it because she's a troublemaker. And so I could totally see doing a story for her, but what that would be, I don't know yet. Yeah, let's see. I definitely wanted to ask you this because, okay, so full disclosure, Lane and I are very, very close friends. And like literally
She was one of my bridesmaids at my wedding.
I was. And actually one of my books, Lane helped me like just kind of figure out the premise for Zora, which is the DC book. We actually brainstormed that on a Zoom call during the pandemic. And so that book is actually dedicated to Lane. And so what you don't know is in loving disaster movies the way that we do, we have actually watched The Day After Tomorrow 2 or 3 times.
More than that.
Like literally like on a Zoom call. Like we're just sitting there with each other watching the same movie at the same time. Because it really is a comfort to both of us. It's very odd in that way, but it's true. But yes, she's one of my favorite people. And so I feel like I probably know the answer to this, but for everyone listening, do you have a favorite disaster film?
I do. It's A Day After Tomorrow. You told me you were going to ask this question, and I tried to like trick you, like pick one that was different than A Day After Tomorrow, but that is just really my favorite. I think for me, just the relationships in it are so top tier.
Yeah.
And it's just so crazy that I'm like, this is awesome. And Jake Gyllenhaal's in it. I mean, and so yeah, that's mine. But what is yours? Because I don't really know.
I waver. Day After Tomorrow is definitely up there. I mean, I'm older than you, so Twister is really high on my list, but I consider The Mummy to be a disaster film. And so, I mean, it's on the cusp. The world could end. Okay. So yes, it's in like early, like 1920, but still the world could end. And so like, to me, I'm like, I love that one. I just think everybody in that movie's hot, and I'll fight someone if they say otherwise. So, okay. So this is a really fun question. Are you ready? Would you rather?
Oh gosh.
Earthquake, hurricane, tornado, tsunami, volcano, meteor, or zombies?
I think earthquake, only because I feel like I'm most likely to survive an earthquake. Like he did it in San Andreas, and I feel like I could do it. Like I've watched the movie enough times that I have all the skills necessary to survive an earthquake, and the rest I feel like would just wipe me. I can't swim, so I definitely don't want any water related ones. No. But which one would you choose?
So earthquake for me too, but I'm from California, so we're trained. I've lived through the 89 quake, and so like I feel like if I was fine in that, I'd probably be okay. Yeah. I've also lived through hurricane and tornado situations, I'm scared. And they freak me out, like just especially like the hurricane, like knowing it's coming, you're just sitting there like, what are we doing? Why are we doing that? No, I don't like it. But what's so interesting is I've had this conversation with 3 of the contributors so far, and they all chose like catastrophic things. They were like, just take me. I don't want to be here. I don't want to try to rebuild or start over. They chose meteors and volcanoes. And I'm like, really, you guys? Like, you
don't have a shot.
You don't want to do like the easy route so that we could just like walk away from this thing? No? Okay, that's fine.
Who is your favorite romantic couple in a disaster movie?
Oh gosh. So I would probably go. I have to give it first to the couple in Twister, because I love the Helen Hunt kind of Bill Paxton situation. But also, I mean, I have no idea what the actress's name is in the movie, but the situation with Pierce Brosnan and Dante's Peak, it was nice. There was some nice tension there. I'm just saying.
Never seen that.
We really need to work on that for you. What about you?
I think I'm not, because the romance in that one is not as good as the San Andreas romance with The Rock and his ex-wife. And I mean, I watched the movie for The Rock and his ex-wife.
Yeah.
And I'm rooting for them and also hoping that they both just come to me. But they are my favorite couple. And they just, like reunite in the end. Sorry, spoiler. They reunite in the end. And it's just like,
spoiler.
I love it.
Spoiler.
I don't know.
But also,
see, I spoiled it. I'm sorry.
Well, that's not the whole movie, though.
That's not the whole.
And actually, there's a second romance in that.
There's 2.
There's 2.
So it's like you get like 2 for 1. Great movie. You should watch it. I highly recommend it. It's probably on a streaming service right now.
Yes. And I mean, The Rock.
The Rock is really in it. And
he
does The Rock things.
Yes, he does. It's very nice.
Yeah, he's like the same character in every movie, but that's okay.
That's why I watched that.
He does it well.
He does.
Yeah.
He The Rock's well. Okay. Can you talk about your other story, your book?
So Love Times Infinity came out last July. Oh my gosh, it's almost a year. That's crazy. And it's about a high school junior who has to write her college essays, but she is really struggling because she has an estranged relationship with her mother, and that's kind of taking over really everything in her life, including her ability to like let a very handsome young man love her. And just about self-discovery and I don't know, learning that like you don't have to rely on other people to love yourself. You kind of have to love yourself first. And it's kind of autobiographical, but it's fiction for anyone who thinks that they may be in it. But yeah, it's just a lot of fun to write. And then I'm working on my second book, which that sophomore slump is very real. Taj mastered it like a champ, but I am not. So
not so much with the third
hopefully that'll be out soon. But you just had a book release. Zora Books Her Happy Ever After.
I did.
Very DC, very black, very
black
grandma meddling.
We love a meddling granny.
We do.
Yes. Until it's real, and then we're like, oh no, granny, stop it. So Zora Books Her Happy Ever After is it's my ode to DC. It's there's a plus size main character, and she is a Black bookstore owner. She is trying her best. She's Black and Filipino. She's trying her best to run her business and make sure that she has significant touches to the community. And she has a crush on an author who's having an event at her bookstore. And ultimately, she also ends up having a crush on his best friend, who's kind of cranky in the beginning, but he ends up showing a different side of himself. And so she dates both gentlemen, which they know this is happening. And throughout, she's trying to figure out who she should choose. But first, she realizes that they're probably hiding something from her, and she has to figure out what that something is before she can choose who she wants to love. And so it's a lot of fun. It's very steamy. I got to do a lot more with that one than I did in Savvy, and so
It makes me blush.
I mean, I went for it in that one. Yeah, she did. She did. For those of you at home, one of the audience just said Zora's getting it in. So yes, she
God
does.
bless her.
But yeah, what do you want to say about the one that you're working on?
Hopefully it gets written sometime in the near future. But it is about a bisexual teenager whose father dies very suddenly, and she finds out that the mother that she thought was dead is actually alive, and she has to go live with her once her father passes away. If there's a theme about absent mothers in books, and I don't know, it's coming together slightly. I don't think any character in it would survive a disaster movie, though. Do you think you have any characters who would survive a disaster movie?
I think all of mine are very resourceful.
Mine would be out.
Yeah.
They would pick the meteor. They're like, I don't want to deal with any of this right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all of mine, because all of mine have ties to California in some way. So I think they would all be like, oh, we're fine. It's an earthquake, no, whatever.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah. In terms of next projects, I'm working on one for next spring. I'm pretty sure the date is set in April of 2024. It is a companion to Savvy. And so Savvy's best friend Maggie gets a story, and it's called The Good Ones Are Taken. I just saw something cover shaped this week. I didn't show you. I need to show you. But yes, that one's moving actually a lot faster than I thought it would. And for me, the sophomore book wasn't the issue. The third one for sure was harder to do. But we're plugging along.
Yeah. What do you think is the one thing a disaster movie needs for you for it to become like an instant classic, instant favorite?
For me, it has to have a love story. If it doesn't, then I'm like, okay, but why? Why do we care?
Yeah.
Why am I invested?
The Day After Tomorrow, I feel like, has a kind of weak love story.
It is kind of weak, but it's still there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Mine is like really stressed out fathers. Like something about something about just like, wow, I have to go save my kid is just like chef's kiss to me. Yeah.
I mean, that's a great theme, honestly. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Stressed out fathers. Wow. That's hilarious. I can't. Okay. In terms of your theme and disaster type books, is there something that you would want to write that's either in the disaster or dystopian or along those lines somewhere?
I don't know. I feel like I would want to just like make Jones and Diana's story longer, like into a full thing. Like maybe this is the start, and then maybe they pretend it never happened when they all go back to normal in that whole journey, because Jones is very like strong-willed and Diana is very cognizant of like what other people think about her. And so I don't know, I think that they would have like a kind of, the law school rivalness does not go away after this event. So
Ooh.
Yeah.
I never considered that they would maintain their rivalry. Oh, that's juicy.
Drama. There's got to be drama.
I love it. I'm here for the drama. Okay, so in terms of, just building in terms of folks who are aspiring writers, what would your best piece of advice be?
just write the story. I feel like we get so caught up in like making it perfect or what trend is in the market right now or blah blah blah. And it's like just write the story you want to write. And the people will come, kind of. Like I think readers really know when you're writing about something you care about versus something that you're just trying to get published or trying to get to the next step. So just write whatever it is that you want to write. Yeah. What about you?
Mine is always eyes on your own page. It's really, really easy to look at everyone around you and see what bits of success they're experiencing and think that that in some way means that you're behind. And so for me, like, especially both of us are also literary agents. And so like, you know, it's something that I tell my own clients, even, you know, it's so important to focus because so often we're looking at this like we're competing with other people, and everybody is dealing with different circumstances, different parameters, different contracts, different everything. And there's no way that it's kind of this rat race situation. It really is like, can you put out your best and do it with integrity and do it in a way that allows you to tell the story that you really want to be out in the world. And so like just eyes on your own page. Don't worry about what other people have going on. If you can be happy for people as they have success, do that. If you can't, just keep your distance. But you know, like just know that it's not a reflection of you and your work. You know, what's happening for others, that's for them. What's happening for you and what will happen for you is going to be for you.
That's good advice.
Thank you. Where can people find you in terms of platforms?
I'm very chronically online, so you can find me on Twitter probably every second of the day. You can at Lane Writes Words on Twitter and Instagram, and then on my website you can sign up for my newsletter. I will eventually write one, but it'll be really good when it happens. But yeah, and where can they find you?
So I feel like all of mine are different. On Twitter, it's Taj McCoy Writes. On Instagram, it's The One Who Will. On TikTok, it's Taj McCoy. My website is tajmccoywrites.com. I make promises about newsletters and then I don't keep them, so I'm sorry. Eventually I'll write one. It's just hard. You know, it's time consuming, and if you I feel like my readers would prefer a book, so I work on the books. But I think we're close to that time. So if we want to open up for questions, do you want to start with some of the online ones?
I have a great online question.
Sure.
So this question is from Tijuana, Mexico, by the way.
Oh,
international.
Are you plotters, pantsers, or plantsers?
This is the best question for the two of us because we're at completely opposite ends of the spectrum.
I am a pantser. I can't plan a book to save my life. It's just like once it's all on the page, I kind of get bored and I'm over it. So I kind of have to discover it as I go. It's the only way that I'll finish a book. My editor loves me because she never knows what book she's about to get. But you are the exact opposite.
Completely.
Yeah.
I am a plotter. I literally start by drafting a synopsis, and then I actually take that synopsis and I plug it into a spreadsheet because I'm a Capricorn and that's what we do. And so like if I haven't mapped it out, I feel like I can't see it. And for me, when I'm writing it, it's like I'm looking above my screen and I'm watching it play out like a movie. And so I have to have plotted out literally every single scene is in this spreadsheet. And so I know what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. Every once in a while, my characters will kind of decide that they want to take some detours. And literally that means I replot from that point on. But it's the way my mind works.
You know those charts that are like chaos and lawful?
Yes,
You're like lawful and I'm just like
completely
chaos.
Yes. Oh, that's the best. Yes. Please.
I read it.
Mhm.
A lot of fun. I'm curious what disaster movie you would place the characters that you wrote in this book into,
Ooh, that's a good one.
and why.
I would probably put Jones and Diana into the Meg.
I love
Just-
that movie so much.
Just because I think it would be hilarious. And eventually they'd have to stop their bickering to like survive this like ginormous shark, or get eaten. But I kind of think it'd be funny. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
I think especially considering their jobs, I think Hallie and Griff, it would make a lot of sense to put them into Independence Day because, like space, aliens, Griff is security. He could fight them. I don't know if he can actually fly a ship or anything, but we can figure it out. But
That's a
also it's
good
just
one.
it's just vibes.
One of the best speeches in like
Truly,
movie history.
I cry every time. I'm like, yes, sir.
It's like, is this the guy in When You Were Sleeping?
Right. That's another one. That's so good.
It's so good.
I love that one.
I also want to know like how we're defining disaster movies. Because I'm like, is the Meg a disaster movie?
I think so. It's like this giant shark who could like end humanity. I feel like, I mean, if everyone was like in the water for some very odd reason, it would just end the world really. And it's, I don't know. I just like, the thought of like, what is it like? He's like 20 yards long or something like
that.
that. To me, like the world's over. I'm done. Like I personally just don't want to be here anymore if that's what we're dealing with. So I think so. Much more than the Mummy. That was not questioned.
Listen. Okay, listen. There's all kinds of stuff happening that would cause the end of the world. It threatens the end of the world. That's a disaster. Okay.
Yeah.
That's how I define it. But also, like, if it, to me, like a disaster movie is anything that threatens way of life, like if it threatens way of life, if it threatens a whole community, like at the very least, like to me, the Meg is absolutely Lake Placid would be in that mix too, in terms of animal disaster movies. So here's the thing. I don't watch Jurassic Park at all. I can't do it. We'll have to, but there's a reason for it.
I was thinking about this specifically earlier, and I do think that Jurassic Park would be a disaster movie, especially that one where they like bring them all to like the city so that they can like sell them off. I'm like, that's a disaster. Like we're all really screwed.
Right.
So I would consider that a disaster movie.
I think that's accurate.
Seems like a disaster.
Fine, you have the Meg.
Yes.
I apologize for everyone online.
She did not give you the Mummy though, so
To me, and it's crazy because it's like there's like pestilence and stuff happening, like what? Okay, but it's fine. It's fine. Right. And literally this army is gonna wipe out the world. Like, what are we doing? Cease. Thank you. See?
Fine.
See?
I'm thinking about X-Men Apocalypse, which is like kind of a similar vibe. So fine.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm gonna allow superheroes into the disaster into the disaster movie genre. I don't know. That feels a little too on the fringes. I'm just
I mean,
Peter Parker in the disaster film.
that's a good point. What else do we have?
You all can ask questions.
Yeah, feel free.
Can you talk about like how you put together like the anthology?
Sure.
Like the different process for writing.
Yeah, so it's kind of a lengthy process at first because for anthology specifically, you have to draft a proposal that is worthy of convincing publishers that they should buy it and because they can be hard to sell at times. And so the proposal itself was, I want to say like over 30 pages. It basically kind of gives a sense of who the market audience is, what the story, the whole thing is meant to be about, who I would propose would be in it, like what platforms and different ways we would go about doing promotion and marketing, what types of audiences we want to reach. It's very involved, but thankfully, when I came up with the premise, I already knew who I wanted to ask. And so I had basically like a list of folks, and I would ask a small handful and see who would say yes, and then see who like either ghosted me or or just wouldn't answer at all or whatever. And then I would move on. We had some folks who wanted to be in it, but unfortunately they couldn't because of other commitments. And so like it was something where it kind of just slowly formed, but I went to all of my favorite romance people first. And actually Lane was the last person I chose, and she was the last person I
elbowed
chose.
my way into
Yes,
this book.
because like I had someone who unfortunately had to drop out, and so I was like, listen, I know you don't write adult, but can you, and would you be willing to write a love scene? And she was like, well, does it have to be on the page? And I was like, well, I would like for it to be, but you know, like we can figure this thing out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I really did just like force my way in. I was just like,
It was
I'm
fun.
writing for this.
I was so
anthology.
happy she said yes. It was a relief to me. But yeah, it can be really time consuming. You know, like going and asking contributors to me feels the same as when I go and ask for blurbs for an upcoming book. And so like most of the time I go to people who I feel like I have a high probability of them saying yes. I did ask a few people where I was like, I know this is a reach. I don't know them personally, and none of them actually responded to me. So it's fine. I still love them if they're watching. But but also, you know, like I also know, like, especially the more popular the author, the busier their schedule is. And so it can be really difficult to catch people at a time when they're available and when, you know, they can squeeze something like that in. One of the people that I had asked, she's like, I can try, but I also have 2 books that I need to write within the next 6 months. And I was like, okay, maybe you shouldn't. It's all right. So it just depends.
My schedule's always clear. You know.
I do have ideas for another one.
Ooh.
One more. Do we want to pull from online, or does anybody here have a question? Desserts. Where did that question come from? That's a I love that. You want to go first? I know yours.
Mine is strawberry shortcake because I can make it myself.
Yeah.
Not from scratch. Like I just buy no. No. I ate Cocoa Pebbles for dinner. You just buy the little like cake things at the grocery store, and you just put the whipped cream, and the most I can do is like cut strawberries. That's why I'm like chefing. So that's about it.
Oh man, my favorite would probably be, that's hard. I make a lot of desserts. The thing I make most often is peach cobbler. I would say the thing that's most popular among my friends, I make strawberry tiramisu.
That was good.
Yeah. The thing that I'd like to make more of, I made this really good French apple tart. That would probably be my favorite. I've only made it twice. But I'd like to make it again at some point.
She's a chef too.
Yeah. But yeah, we have a lot of fun. But yeah, thank you guys so much. This has
Yeah,
been so
thank
much fun.
you.
Appreciate you.
Here. I'll get the table out. So if you have books that you want to get signed, or more than one to sign them. And if you haven't already gotten a book, courtesy is still open. So feel free to do that. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
First thing I'll do is get